So I guess our first order that we need to add as an amendment to the agenda would be electing a chair and vice chair. That would be probably the most prudent order of business.
Everybody's aboard with that chair.
Oh yeah, so I guess we gotta follow the agenda, so. We're running this meeting. The fire department, very informal. I guess, welcome everyone. Doesn't sound like doesn't look like we have any visitors. There's no one here, Matt, in the audience. No public comment, I guess, unless anyone wants to say anything. Not really to the agenda. Anyone? Okay. Additions, electing chair and vice chair. Sound good?
Yep.
You want to take roll? Notes. Who's volunteering for chair? Is that supposed to be a select board member? Is that like precedent shows?
In
or-
the time that I have been on the committee, it has always been a member of the select board that has been the chair. First Christine Wernicke and then Jeff Forward.
Mhm.
I think probably because a lot of what we discuss ultimately ends up having to go to the select board.
Mhm.
You know, we're an advisory body. We don't make decisions. The select board ultimately makes decisions.
Yes.
So it's always been easier to have a select board member as the
It's a little more
chair.
coherent.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer, honestly. You being the
Sounds
builder,
great.
I think It frees you up to speak there, I think, if you're not the chair, as a builder.
And also, after my wife realizing that I had 2 commitments this week, and that's gonna be an ongoing thing, I think
Oh,
they'll.
it's
Yeah,
only gonna
Okay,
ramp up.
so,
Why doesn't she just join a board, bring the kids, you know? And just live here?
you haven't seen my kids in a board meeting. Yeah, so I guess, we need a motion. I guess I can make a motion. I make a motion that we nominate Lisa Miller for chair of the Town of Richmond Town of Richmond, what is it? Town Center and Library Committee.
There you go.
Second.
Any discussion? No one? Roll call vote.
Can I vote no? I mean,
Mike, aye.
Adam, I.
Amy, I.
Lisa, abstain.
Hi,
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Who,
Who's elected? Oh, we should have done introductions first, I guess, right?
let's do it. I'm rattling two 2-year-olds right now.
Actually, I think we pawned that off on Lisa to run everything from now on.
okay, I would like to take roll, so that's my very first thing, but I know how to do that, but, who is that?
This is Matt. He's our 6th member that we nominated.
Well,
Matt, do you have a last name? Did they give you one?
I do, you know, Sharoni, it's a little tough to spell. CHER.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it. What's the last letter?
Y. Yeah, as in Yankee.
Gotcha. I think I got it now. I'll search for verification of that. I know I saw your response. Thank you. Okay. And will there be other officers or would it be a vice chair in case? There should be a second person.
If we can do this too much, that was not things that Josh and I covered. I would assume we would need at minimum a vice chair to run it. If
I think,
You're not
yeah,
there, right?
in case I wasn't able to make it or, you know. Yeah. You can feel that.
I don't mind doing vice chair too. I just don't want to be primarily responsible the whole time.
Okay.
I'm kind of new at this. I'm not sure I know the protocol.
Makes two of us.
If you think you're gonna learn from us,
I think we still gotta vote on it.
There's someone, do we have someone to take the minutes?
I'll take minutes a little as I can. I don't think they'll get.
Amy, how does that normally work? Do we need to appoint a minute taker or do we review the camera and stuff?
We had somebody take minutes because again, I think the nature of the discussions that we had were often, it was really important to record everything that had
Sure.
been discussed, and with the amount of people in the community who said that they didn't have enough information, like having the minutes on the website after every meeting is really
Yeah.
important, I think, for people that want to follow the conversation.
I've done a little homework here getting ready for this, and I did go back through and look at all of the minutes that they, since they began, but it was helpful in figuring
Sounds
out.
like
what
that
was
was-
going on.
Every day that has big shoes to fill, like that, like whoever takes over. Lori was very meticulous in keeping minutes.
So,
So yeah, in the past, there's been a chair and a secretary.
no, oh, so we don't need so no vice chair, just chair and secretary. I guess I'll do that instead then. I can figure out my handwriting and my minute taking a little bit. Maybe I'll
I'll
take
stop
a,
taking. I mean, I was
take
just.
I'll have to take a class on that. All right.
I think if we just even get bullet points, I think we're good. I mean, once there gets to be more discussion, and we get it reconstructed or number. Right now.
Make a motion to formalize my sacrificial role as the secretary.
I will make a motion to nominate Adam Wood as the secretary, committee secretary.
Second.
Hi. Yes,
There you go.
That was a yes?
With an eye.
Oh, and I, okay,
Aye.
for you.
Like
Okay, Mike.
Adam, staying.
And I guess for a second, vice chair.
I think we. We're gonna do just a chair and a secretary.
Okay. And yeah, if the, we empower the secretary to convene the meeting or.
Sounds reasonable.
Maybe it's,
Maybe the mechanics of. The board would be the hardest part.
yeah, after that,
So I guess I need to start recording.
all right.
On the format.
If I'm gonna chair this thing, then I would like to go through, Adam, your email from about 2 weeks ago, where you, subject counts in the community.
Can you hear us okay or no?
yeah, I can hear great. I have a
Fine.
little bit of bedtime chaos going on, so I'm
Yeah,
on
it's,
mute. It'll stand down.
We were having some mic problems, so I couldn't tell.
Oh,
Want to make sure they were fixed.
Nope, crystal clear.
okay. The first thing we did was pick a meeting schedule, and I think we're settled on the Wednesdays, the second, and fourth Wednesday.
Yeah, that worked.
Yeah, we saw there's a schedule out some distance on the calendar, so good. And one thing that you had written in here, Adam, was where you and I had talked, you put a kind of a little recap of that in your notes here. Our focus was on the initial steps to get the committee functioning and first action items to get the process moving. And we have the design team, those Black River design. And I believe that we, excuse me, a little worse today. I believe that we have Josh looking for money to actually hire them. I don't know if that's actually been consummated or finished, but we have it. It's just a matter of, actually, it's a matter of the select board authorizing the funds dispersed from the council and fund.
Yeah, so I guess we should give a full recap. So Lisa and I met like really quick because Jeff was heading out of town. And so we met with Jeff. And then Josh was there to kind of facilitate and design the, I guess, who the design team in the previous committee, obviously. They seemed very receptive to walking us through kind of the interdependencies of the project and where they thought there were opportunities for separating that out, where they thought there were opportunities for paring things down. And just all that. They seemed very receptive to that and they seemed very knowledgeable. Obviously, they've done a ton of work. When you can back us up, back them up on that. Lisa and I were both really confident that it was a good way to go. They seemed not attached to the project at all. In that I mean, obviously, I think they want to see us get something done. They understand the building needs some work and they want to see us get through the process. But they don't seem attached to any one portion of it. They do seem attached to helping us find a way to make it workable, which was very reassuring to me that I didn't get any sense that there was any part of it they were attached to a site and help and walk us through it. So so on that specific topic, I'm very confident that that would be the right move. The other things we talked about were just kind of, it's more like the history of the project and the building a little bit, kind of some expectations from various tenants and those relationships and kind of how that all works. We definitely don't have a clear view of any of that stuff because it was only like an hour meeting to cover everything. But just kind of a general broad strokes of what the history there and where we're at. And I would say the more important things were that the most important things I took away were that there was a lot of grant funding that was, was pursued pretty aggressively. But there's some stuff that's popped up, I guess, in some new contexts that have reached out kind of as part of the process, primarily for the FEMA grant and then for an energy grant. That it's not that they weren't pursued before, it's that the kind of the opportunity is re-popped up. We have a new contact that I guess used to work in town and is going to help us pursue that stuff potentially if we wanted to. So there's, I mean, I don't know orders of magnitude, but it sounded like very large potential. I don't know if I were to like throw a number at it, if I got the sense that it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars up to, I don't think we're going to cover half the project by any means, but I think there's a good chance we could get like hundreds of thousands up to like $1 million or $1.5 million. It's like, very, very broad sense of it. So obviously that's worth considering. So that's kind of the broad strokes that we covered. I mean, Jeff's obviously willing to be a resource on the technical parts that he was kind of an expert on, but he's gone for a month and does not want to be involved day to day.
Right. I think at the moment he's on a barge in southern France.
So I think that makes president expert, right?
Expert might be a strong word, but.
So the least unqualified. How's that? Yeah, so I guess our big thing that we took away, I had sent out those bullet points of kind of what we saw as next steps, but Lisa and I think both agreed pretty confidently that any direction we go, we kind of talked very briefly about whether we go for Black River. I guess Lisa and I and Jeff, yeah, and I think all of our takeaway, mine from that perspective, Jeff having worked with them, I think Lisa came to the same conclusion, was that that's kind of the right move, and that they would just do it on a time, like an hourly basis, until we got to a point where if we, yeah, exactly. If they walked us through this and we come up with a new scope and we've pared things down and changed things and tweaked things and they want to redesign the project, then they would give us a new contract that would cover that design process. So I don't forget what was the number that. So anyway, so Josh worked with them, they gave us a proposal and then we can, that was kind of I'm considering it, the extension of the contract was that proposal that Josh had sent out. But we didn't really cover any specifics of where the project could go. We didn't cover any specifics of where the big costs were or what the problems were or any of that stuff. We figured that was all more worthwhile we discussing as a committee.
And maybe, and sorry for my ignorance, take a step back. I heard from Josh on Monday that I was joining the board, which I'm very excited about. And that is basically the only communication I've had about it. So maybe just simply stated, what's our charter? And
Yeah, so I was going to try to give a quick synopsis of the background of what Lisa and I have done in the meantime.
got
And
it.
then on our, did he send you the agenda?
No.
So that's our first one, to discuss the goals and the goals for reform committee and provide a mandate.
Right.
Request the select board to provide us a mandate to work off of.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, here, do you want me to, I'm gonna send it to you.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
I'm just gonna text it to you because.
That works.
This would be the May 8th. Did you guys not get it? Is that my bad? Very, very.
Yeah, myself.
I think it was posted.
It is posted. Apologize. I just found it out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I
Do we have any specific things in the agenda that we?
Yeah, so I think those are the things. You can follow that.
Why don't we start with the scope and things, because I think that's something that needs to be revised from the original. I'll just think out off the top of my head, but the vote was the revolution. It's also something we heard, we spoke. It's much. Didn't say no. There were questions about the scope, there were questions about, but I don't really get the sense that people said no. It's very clear that one is. They don't work with it.
Right.
And that's, if they did, they'd do it. So my take on it is, we have an obligation to employees and families, we can help it, say, and we have an obligation to our town to, preserve this building, that's usually and to use it. It's also a line of the so there was a lot of things was not going to work. I think this is the quality of the campus, the foundation, my heating bills and so forth, ergonomics, there could be a lot of things. But the previous work that did address all of this. Maybe not the way it is when you take it in the future, but you address it well, definitely ventilation system is addressed, and to do it like that, they may need to resize some things or relocate some things. That's so I think that's where we're starting. We have a quick base to help on. My concern, and tell me if they were, my concern is that right away up front, address how we're going to minimize. Now, the second thing is to address what kind of schedule we want. The longer it goes, the more it will cost. But if we need to take a lot of scope on ourselves, if we will take a while, if we don't, then it's important. And I also want to do learning, so this very much. So yeah, that's just me. If you agree, actually, right here.
I pretty much agree with what you're saying. One thing I think, there's been quite a lot of vocal commentary here since the vote about we should just give up on this building and build something up on top of a mountain somewhere and so forth. My trip through the minutes tells me that they did an awful lot of work on that.
Mhm.
And so there's probably a lot of information on, but it all came down to someone from Black River told us it would cost more to build a new one. And I think maybe we need a little more backup on that as to why we think this building should stay here. And not look at finding a new lot on higher ground somewhere or tearing this one down or whatever to build a new one.
Thank you. It's, it occurred to me, we don't have a lot of land in this town, but we own pretty much everything on the library, there. If there were a small enough for nothing would so and with the free up this building, do a lot less variety of work. You can also people have right internet system all the things, there's also there's a lot of different uses for the building that appropriate spreads out the government departments. So if we had a stamp on site where the work, the daily work of the town, it's pretty hard. It's hold it condition. Well, I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but maybe a lot of people do. It's the same. Okay. One way to find that out is to put it in print. See how it goes. But, you know, I don't think we want to be, I agree with Paul. That we don't want to be thinking on like what happened. That would happen, what was done. We don't want to be. We don't want to be thinking on, we don't want to do any possibilities right now. There's.
I moved to town here in 1986, and shortly after that time, there was the same question coming up of, that we tear down all these buildings, the church over here and this one, and build a new office building and so forth. And there was a big outcry in town, and there was, I believe, a vote whether which way to go. And I voted to keep this building, and I still agree with that, you know, but
Make sure.
and I think from the minutes, I think Gary Bresser came in and made a presentation to the committee at one point regarding the history of that and so forth.
Yeah, it's.
I have a question, I guess, for Amy, since you're a resident. What do we say? At least unqualified.
Please, unqualified.
Yeah.
I've been to the vote of meeting.
Yes, exactly. You obviously pursued all this and, the cost, like, I don't not trust their cost at all. I guess I'm just curious how much thought was put into citing another building and all that, because obviously there's a lot of, not only the cost, but a lot of logistical and timeframe issues there. And I'm just curious how much effort was put in, because if a lot of effort was put in, it was all thought out. And I think that'll guide us not needing to redo that work, versus if it wasn't, then
No, we spent several meetings, like the first thing we did before we ever talked about buildings construction was we did, and this was a lot when Christine was the chair. We did a tremendous amount of time and effort getting community outreach on what was the community's, you know, did the community want to keep the building? Did the community want to give it up and build a new building somewhere? And the overwhelming, all the survey feedback which we got was overwhelmingly people liked this building, they liked this location. This building was important for a lot of other people as well. They liked this location. They wanted to maintain a walkable town center. They wanted to maintain the proximity with the library, like as a sort of town center campus. They liked the post office being here. So we got a very clear message that people were wanting us
I remember
to do
that
something
survey.
with this site. So we spent 6 months with soliciting community input and talking to people about what they wanted and surveys and meetings and things like that. So we worked from the assumption that the community was in favor of this location. We did ask the architects to do some just basic cost estimating of new building versus this building. And I think the estimates were roughly equal square footage. And their estimates were that a new building, while building the building itself might be slightly cheaper, acquiring the land, finding the permitting, doing the excavation in the site, like those costs would add up to make a new building of a similar square footage more expensive than renovating this building. And I think one thing to keep in mind, a lot of people, I mean, yes, the bond we went to was $9 million. The actual cost of renovating this building was $4 million. The extra 5 is all the extra stuff that comes with any construction project. It was, how do we pay for, moving people off site? How do we pay for permitting? How do we pay for insurance? There was a percentage cost over, like a contingency fund. So I think it's really,
there's a
we
pretty
may wanna
substantial
be
amount
thinking-
just for inflation.
Yeah.
Like everything. I remember
Exactly,
yesterday,
we had
very,
inflation
very
costs.
comprehensive.
so on a lot of, exactly, on a lot of the posters and a lot of the material that was sent out, we've had those costs broken out. I don't know, maybe we didn't lay them out clearly enough because and again, we were asking the community for the money to fix the building, plus all of the contingency money so that we wouldn't have to go back to the community again to ask for more money.
Right.
Like 9 was, this was the most we were gonna ask for. Exactly. So I
You don't want to be surprised.
So I think when we're talking about new building, old building, renovate building, like we should keep in mind that the cost for renovating the building is $4 million. There is a significant extra pot that we need to, no matter what we do, that we will need to do. And if we build new, the town does not own more land. We would have to buy land, rent land, those costs are sort of the hidden costs of the new build. And I think to your point, Lisa, one thing we also need to be really careful about if we're thinking about, like you said, well, let's just put we are hampered by our zoning restrictions, our town zoning restrictions. So we cannot build more square footage on this lot because So, and we can talk with the zoning folks about that, but there's some pretty significant regulations that we pretty quickly realized we can't do certain things even with a renovation of this building because we would be breaking our own zoning regulations.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That would be putting me at box, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I heard those things thinking.
Yeah.
That's, you're exactly right. It's kind of how.
Exactly.
What, I guess, right now, kind of discuss what we might be doing, and without any obligations or, finger pointing or any, actions. Sort of a blank sheet of paper, whatever.
I have one just like procedural question. Do we think it's actually reasonable to come up with a mandate and request it from the board today, or are we going to discuss this? I'll think about it and do it. I didn't call it an action item because I didn't think that, I thought that it was going to be tough for us all to jump in and just.
I think it is. Was there, it was in the night.
I mean, I think that it would guide our work going forward, so we should do it sooner rather than later, but I think that today might be.
I think it's fairly clear to us what we think we want.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, it's got a fund issue that failed and got a pretty complete design of something that we need to find a way to make a little less expensive and eventually go back to the owners.
My only question would be, the only question, I think that all that part of it seems clear, just if we really were to dig into on another site, if that was something that members
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
talk about that, I think we would need to answer that before we request a mandate, because that would be part of that mandate. Kind of what I had in mind, I mean,
Yeah.
knowing what construction costs and land costs in Richmond and being intimately familiar with miserable construction projects.
I know there's been a lot of discussion recently about trying to find places to build additional housing in
Yeah.
town. And it's very hard to find anything where it's near the center of town. So
I think it would be really difficult to find a place in town water and sewer and all that stuff where we could put a this amount of office space and a post office would be, I guess, a challenge to say the least. I guess in my mind, I don't have any question that including, the financial constraints and realities on top, when you add on top of that, the constraints of just not of having to find a lot that's suitable and develop it in town and permit it. I don't have any real question that both time frame and money wise, it makes more sense to stick with this building. But I don't want to speak for everyone on the board. I guess I kind of like mulled a bunch. That's kind of the main thing I've thought about. And I, not even having reviewed everything in really as much detail as you have, Mike, just really thinking about the land thing, where we would physically put a building. My hunch is that just getting that process started and completed would be such a long time frame that we would run into serious issues with this building and we need to put more money into it anyway. At that point, it'd be a waste of money. I guess in my mind, we're not Williston or Essex. We don't have flat land. We don't have flat expandable places and stuff. We have some pretty serious constraints. Yeah, we have some serious constraints. So
Our flat land gets wet pretty often.
yeah, yeah. In fact, yeah. So I guess in my mind, I don't see any benefit in pursuing and going down that road again. I think that the work's been done in enough detail combined with just the realities of Richmond.
But-
I'm confident.
But I think we may want to put together a story of why. we're
Okay.
making that decision.
Sure. Okay.
Because I think there definitely are people in town that are very vocal about, I think we should
Right, and I also noticed there's a lot of people that didn't take advantage of all the information available, tours, whatever.
I'm guilty of that too. So.
What's it? Why do we think that, why do we get fix the post office? Yeah. You know, that's always going to happen, but.
So,
That's.
Sorry.
Question for you. Is there-
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just having a little trouble hearing you on the end. That's everyone else is very clear. You're a little fuzzy.
oh yeah, Lisa.
Does this work here? Yeah.
Oh,
Is
that's
it-
wonderful. Way
Okay,
better.
I'll pull that over and. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt.
Barker, you can hold it up.
Yep.
Okay, can you hear us all now? Okay, or?
Much, much better. Thank you. Yeah, this is great.
I was gonna say, is there a possibility of adding on to this? And the reason I asked.
Well, I think that our big constraint, just right off the bat, is we're in the floodplains. That's the limitation. And also, we have percent lot coverage, and there's a few different constraints. Those are the two big ones. So we're pretty limited, and then the height is also a concern. So we're kind of limited on height. We could theoretically add on the post office. We can't go down because then we're in the floodplain. Yeah.
Adding on adds cost too. It would not take the cost of the project down to add square footage.
The only reason I was thinking that is, we need a place to house the staff. At some point, there'll be construction that's just so disruptive and dusty, we can't work it. We need to relocate people. I don't think the town can shut down for 6 months. Maybe it can, I don't know, but if tax bills weren't sent out, I think it would deal with that. We get more, if there any other way to not have to move the entire operation to the very back end or something that I know it would be a lot smoother, but if we can't really, if there isn't a place here on the site to.
But could it be phased and do one half, bring the town
Well,
offices up
that's-
here, or
that's-
something for,
right.
on the top floor for a while and do the second floor or something like that?
That's exactly where I think we should head, because
I'm gonna bother everyone for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Back to the agenda quick, so we can, well, I'm gonna kick the mandate down until next. Not that it's your decision. I'm just gonna, I guess I'm gonna recommend that we discussed it. Let's discuss it a little bit for a minute at the end, but then we can formalize that. I think it's important to formalize that by the next meeting though. So that gives us our clear kind of mandate / thesis statement to offer.
yeah, Adam, I think that's a where here.
That makes sense, Matt?
That makes sense to me. And I just want to second what you said, having built a bunch of pretty industrial building in Vermont. Building a new building is extremely challenging and very expensive. I was just at Beta Tech for 3 years and I retrofit the entire building of their headquarters. I also built their manufacturing building next door to their headquarters. It's less than a quarter mile away. The square footage cost of the retrofit building was about $215 per square foot. The square footage cost of the manufacturing building was $650 a square foot. It is threefold more expensive to build new in my experience.
Those are both pretty good compared to the cost of this building. So we just want to build an airport hangar over here or what?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, and again,
Experience too, in more residential stuff and like residential small commercial, I've had the same experience recently where maybe not as big of a discrepancy, but it's usually at least 50% cheaper.
yeah, it's a heck of a difference. And I guess one of my questions, I haven't had a chance to educate myself yet. I'll read through the minutes and kind of some of the information is, what was the cost per square foot estimate for the building?
I'd have to go back and look in the minutes. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was cheaper to retrofit than build new for an equivalent square footage.
Yeah, understood.
I
Okay.
forget what the actual numbers are. It was like 4.2 million of actual construction
Yeah.
costs. And then the buildings.
Oh,
when
right
it's square feet.
I don't know if that breaks it down by square footage. though.
They didn't, but
Straight up.
And I forget the actual square footage of the building is like 40. Forget because it's the post office too, so maybe,
No worries.
Yeah,
We
we have a document somewhere that says that.
Yeah.
good question. So we should dig that up. All right, so next, sorry, Lisa, I'm just gonna make keep tracking.
I just realized I've got this, which is the.
Yeah. Has the square footage here in it or not? I can't remember.
I don't think it is.
It's not too many numbers in it, so it was, well. This, events, yeah, well, if anybody wants to take a look at this, realize I have it here. Okay, so it looks like really early on, we're going to have to follow much of the same blueprint. As before, and that's a good thing. I mean, a lot of that's known to the art, so to speak. So, you don't have to reinvent the wheel completely. It wasn't done in the last iteration of it. It should be considered. Maybe we do it. Maybe we don't. There's some sort of a phasing of the projects. And perhaps we're bonded. It's bonded in portions. If the portion can be made stand alone, it's a just let's say we just replaced all the windows. That could be a whole issue of its own that gets it done earlier. What costs go up? Apparently, these windows are horribly expensive to replace. I think Jeff had said it was $1 million just for windows.
Really that much?
Yeah. Well, because, and again, this is where I don't know because I wasn't part of those discussions, but the historical nature of the building to be compatible with it, it's not just the average window. It's a custom window, and there's a whole bunch of you have to be fit, and there's also some work to the way the drop ceiling shows outside and so forth. Those need to be removed. There's a lot of work to adjust.
Yeah, that was a question I had. I think part of it was to take all these drop ceilings out and make them go. Those are probably put in when they're put in to reduce heating costs, reduce the volume. It's going to be heating. Do we really want to do that?
I would think when you see the mechanicals, they're not that great to look at. It makes it a lot quieter. You have an acoustic ceiling with mechanicals above it. I don't hear the air whooshing through. Echoes don't happen because you've got softer.
Plus, if we're going to put more pipes in here for sprinkler systems and then new heating system and so forth, it seems like it makes sense to, some of them may need some replacement, but it makes sense to leave them there. And I think you don't, you do see that blocked off parking outside, which isn't historically accurate, but
A lot of these questions are stuff that we should probably get advice from Black River on, or whoever we decide our design team.
Yeah.
So
maybe they
Bring it back.
shorter, so we
That's
don't have to.
is that something we can talk about now?
Ceiling, and that should save them in the window. I don't know. I'm not sure how we wound up
You
with
want to
that size.
facilitate that? Let's talk about let's consider, we want to extend the contract with them.
I think so. I mean, it's.
yeah, I think we need to get them back involved at some point.
Yeah, so they.
I don't think that document was included. I will pull that up and send it to everyone. But
And-
Josh,
Not
Josh
having,
had them. Go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say, not having experience with them, I guess I can't really have an opinion. Sounds like
Yeah, I
the
can-
kid was happy about it last time, the relationship.
We interviewed 3 different firms. We put out an RFP for an architectural firm. We had, I think, 4 responses to the RFP. We brought in 3 firms to interview. They were all really good. Black River we liked them. They also had the most experience with public funded projects of this type. So we went with them out of the 3 companies that we spoke with.
Great, and during the relationship, things went pretty well.
Yes, yeah, they were great. They came to a ton of evening meetings. They sat down and answered. They were very patient with us, many questions. And that's probably what I would suggest is if we want to extend the contract with them, to invite John and Adam, I think we had an Adam too, to come back and we should probably prepare a list of questions that you'd like to ask them and then just have them kind of come in and answer the questions that.
So they sent us a proposal. I can forward this to everyone. This probably should have been attached to the meeting, but as I'm just figuring this out, I didn't do that. They basically gave us, I'll send it to everyone, but it's a basically they allocated us an amount of money for time to come in and explain a bunch of parts of the project, and all the categories. They include code improvements, floodproofing, reconfiguration, HVAC, thermal envelope and efficiency, finishes, site work, structural upgrades, and then basically they allocated time to meet with the committee and solicit feedback from us and help us come up with options and develop a formal proposal from which they could develop a formal proposal for us. So basically walk us through the process enough to where they were comfortable they could have another actual design contract. And so what we had talked about is just getting a contract going with them for enough money for them to advise us through our questions right now and kind of background stuff and get us up to speed with everything that has happened and the building itself and any intricacies that we may be missing during these conversations. So when the agenda item that said consider a contract, it's not to consider a long-term design contract. It would just be an interim T&M contract, I guess mostly time and materials. And what they proposed was a $7,500 not to exceed contract, and then they would just bill it hourly. So they'd have a partner architect for $165 an hour, and then a PM for $100 an hour. We could choose to use both or either of them as we see that. Is that something that everyone wants to consider, or I don't know? I mean,
Yeah, as much as we can reuse is good.
yeah, I think that there's a lot of, I mean, they're going to be the most extra people we're carrying over from the previous team, so I think it's worthwhile.
I would expect some pretty big efficiencies from them if they're reviewing their own work and representing. It's not going to cost the full price. It's better not. So I mean, that's a savings there that I think will resonate with the voters here. Is, you know, we're trying not to waste that. We should pay for it the first time, so it's not wasted. That's one part of the job. It is reusable. I mean, much of it. You know, the idea is the calculations, all this stuff, maybe not. But the design thinking is done thoroughly.
So I guess I make a motion that well, here, let me send the contract to everyone, but I make a motion that we request the select board to approve funding for the April 29th Black River design proposal for interim design services to our committee.
I would second that.
Aye.
Matt,
Agreed.
go ahead, Matt. Yeah, you did.
Mike, aye.
Adam, aye.
Amy, I.
And sure, that's aye. Any opposed? Just really isn't anyone opposed. No vote both ways. Okay, so that is a decision. There's something we wanted to say a couple minutes ago. Should we right now decide whether we want to break this project into pieces? Or do we think it's premature to try to figure out what this pieces would be? Or we want advice from the architect and how to do that?
There's a couple of things that I looked into that I thought might be postponed.
Mhm.
One, the post office roof. As far as I can tell, the post office roof right now is as good as it ever was. It isn't like it's in danger of falling down. I think
Oh,
the issues with it are that there's insufficient insulation in it.
mhm.
And the structure of it maybe isn't as robust as some people would like, but it's been holding up the snow since 1953. And they'd like to strengthen it in order to put solar panels on it at some point. So would that be something that we don't need to do right?
Exactly. Solar panels have been around for a long time.
Yeah, and there was also, reading through the minutes, someone like Jeff asked the architect if it was possible to build a new structure with a roof over the top of the old one without tearing it all out, and they said no. but I'd kind of like a second opinion, you know.
Over the post office roof?
Yeah, post office roof, yes. I just looked out the window here as I was coming up. It's almost flat roof sloping down there.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's it would be less, the problem with putting it off is the other part of the post office, that's something else I want to talk about, is to tear the whole thing apart and fill it underneath it with dirt.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna throw them out to do that, then maybe it's not to do it.
Right, get it over with.
But but there's also several places in there where they said we have to fill in that ditch down there and take everything out of it. I haven't heard the reason why.
Oh, that's an easy one because we have to do that for the flood meter.
Yeah.
So to be able to do this project, we have to meet.
So what is it gonna do for the flood mitigation?
That trench filled with water every time it floods,
That's
it
how,
doesn't drain.
that's how the basement
It's
handle the water.
standing water.
FEMA requirement. And then I guess so in our zoning regulations, I don't know if it's national requirement, but it's a national guideline that we choose to follow. To fall in under the FEMA certain risk category, not for the actual flooding, but for building this.
Mhm.
Is that if you're doing a substantial renovation, which is what, over 50% or 33 or
50%, I think.
yeah, the dollar value of the structure, you have to meet the current FEMA regulations. And if you don't do that, you just can't do the project. So
Those are the-
this is what I ran into. We did this to our house and it's the same, it's a bigger project, it's different, but it's the same requirement. And so there's very specific requirements we have to meet to even allow us to do a project of this magnitude.
And there's part of the post office foundation floor that has to be raised a few, like
Yeah,
a few
yeah, I
inches
knew
in
that
order
part,
to,
yes, as well.
do that. And I think that has something to do with the roof as well. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah. The other thing that seems to be separated, a lot of the project here, if we're gonna start tearing all that, cut there to it all. The windows, I think Lisa mentioned earlier, seem to be a little bit separate. Could we do some of that now with maybe some of the money that's in the fund and put in a plan to finish them all over the next so many years or something like that and get them out of it? $1 million is an awful lot to take a while to do if it's really that much, but that was just the other thought I had that doesn't seem to be connected to anything else, so maybe
We could request all the not formally committed ARPA money and really
Well, that's,
Yeah.
put a wrench in the works.
the end game is coming soon because the schedule, that's gotta all be committed by the end of the year for one thing or the other. And that's true. Right now, we're doing a lot of recreational amenities.
We're doing a lot,
and other things.
we're doing a lot of shuffling just to avoid committing it.
Well, that's also true. I forget the number that's still uncommitted, but it's 6 figures. I don't know what figures they are, but that would help a lot. I mean, it's taxpayer money anyway. I mean, it's federal, but I came over pockets in that direction, but yeah, it's kind of a recycling of our own money. That would be nice.
It seems like perhaps one of the things that maybe we should ask the select board to formalize in our charge is to talk about how do we pay for these things, because you know, whether it's applying for grants, whether it's using ARPA money, I think the projects, even the bare bones projects for renovation are substantial expenses. And there's not enough money in the town center budget right now to pay for much of the renovation that needs to happen. So we need to have some other source of income in order to do almost anything. And we also know the town center budget also has to maintain the library exterior of the building as well. So we're splitting our limited money between two structures.
They're doing a pretty expensive work on the light.
Yeah, that's come out of the town center fund and some grant money.
I just had a question, how much is left in the town center fund at the end of this year? I know there's
Couple $100,000, I think.
it's like 250,000 at the beginning of the last fiscal year. That's
Some of the work that's being done currently on the library exterior, we got grant funding for, so it's not, and we got ARPA funding to cover some of it. So, it's not all coming out of the town center fund, but there's a limited budget there.
Yeah, the other item that I hate to argue against fire safety things, but there's $400,000 for the fire escape tower. If you have the same door that we're got stairs going out now. It's closed in fire escape. I think it has a new door out the first floor, but that seems like, is it really $400,000 better to have one with a roof on it? Or does it have to be done? right
Out
now?
the window, to
Yeah.
get out to the fire escape to this from the second floor, you have to go out a window to get.
Well, maybe they need to make a door there, but, that's a lot less than
I do think
$400,000.
that
Yeah,
might be
that's-
similar to.
These are the kind of things that probably most people aren't aware of,
Yeah.
what cost really comes
I
in.
think there's some similarities between that and the FEMA thing, where if we were to pull a state fire permit, which we will have to do any amount of work that's not maintenance,
Mhm.
there's gonna be specific requirements that we have to meet. And there's gonna be a huge huge barrier to entry, huge,
Yeah,
there's cost to entry to get when we even are allowed to do any remodeling, because they will make us bring it up to some semblance of current fire code. And I think that includes sprinklers and fire escapes, among other things.
Mhm.
And those are two pretty costly things that we just kind of have to count on doing. Now, whether we have the specifics of how we do it, I don't know.
there was a lot of discussion there from the minutes about the sprinklers. There's some which surprised me that they weren't really required in the building, that they decided they ought to do it, but, it seems like that would be a no-brainer. It needs to be in there, but.
Yeah, a sprinkler is a mixed blessing, it'll put out a fire. It'll also ruin every document you have. I could just see a sprinkler going off in the planning and zoning office, it'd be a disaster, because they don't have electronic record keeping yet, so.
Statistically,
Yeah.
buildings with sprinklers don't burn down, people don't die in them, so
Yeah, well, that's, if I was in
it
here
doesn't happen.
right now, not fired, I'd be glad to. Mhm. But yeah, I
Alright,
mean, there's
so-
certain realities we have to go with, and they're expensive, so.
This isn't necessarily a funding question, but it's something I think I have to shape in my mind a bit. Do we know if the town has a preference on look? Like one of the things I kind of have in my head is, we have these big, beautiful windows, but they're custom sized, right? Or we have a certain siding, or we have certain aesthetics to the building right now that if we change may significantly alter what we can put in. I don't understand what those might be right now, but I think it's worth asking the question of, do we need to maintain the aesthetics of the building, or their preferences of what that looks like? There's chances we could do updates that we get good funding for, federal money for, that, they don't make in the specific size windows, or for the specific exterior we have right now, or the type of roof that we have. I wonder if anyone knows what the answer is.
Good question, right, man, I've heard that to keep the historical appearance, and I don't know if that's a requirement or whether it's just a nice thing now. Of the exterior of the building, the windows had to be custom made to put these large openings. And that alone was $1 million. I remember that number, Jeff giving me $1 million just for windows. And the problem is, first of all, listen off the grade level, they're big, heavy, custom, very young. Good question. I mean, if we don't have to do that for ourselves.
I mean, I think so. I think one of our limitations is gonna be that the exterior is like in reasonably decent shape. And we don't need to do much there, and it's brick, so the opportunity to do much of that, like, really, yeah, right.
You don't really.
Like, it's smile, yeah. The minute we dive into it, it's like, oh no, where do you stop? So like, resizing the windows, we'll spend like 10 grand in 10 grand per window in brickwork to save 5 grand in window. But I think on the interior, I think we have a lot of leeway, but I think a lot of that leeway was used. I don't think we were like maintaining any historic trim, and I know specifically the historic renovation was kind of.
Yeah,
burned down.
the conversations that had happened previously, was that we were gonna do next to nothing to the exterior shell of the building. The roof is in good shape, the exterior is in good shape. Everything we were doing was from the walls in. And when we were exploring historic preservation grants, in particular for the windows, I don't know how much we explored for anything other than the windows. The restrictions, from historic preservation on restoring the windows versus replacing the windows, like if we got grant money from historic preservation, we would have had to do window restoration, which would have been almost like equally as expensive, and trying to get each of the window, I don't know exactly what they were gonna do to them, but it we looked at it and said, you know what, it's not, the grant that we would get for historic preservation of windows didn't seem to be worth the cost of, and the limitations of what we get. It seemed to be better to replace them with new, modern windows. And that was the only, that would have been the only exterior difference in terms of the look of the windows, I think, that we had talked about before, so. But I don't remember there ever having been like a specific conversation about preserving the exterior aesthetic. I think
I do remember that there wasn't, I remember
there was
one of
no
the meetings I
big
attended.
outcry for
Yeah,
it.
it was, there wasn't gonna be much happening out there, so it never
No.
really came up because it was just kind of a non-issue, but.
So I don't know if, I mean, I don't know if that's something we should ask the community now, or
Yeah,
if it's, yeah,
should we
I'd rather have.
start assigning items to people?
yeah.
Given the history. By the way, Lori Dana wrote a summary of, and I don't know if that's this, it's not the frequent questions exactly. I have a copy of it somewhere, I think, or maybe I don't, but that's something that should.
I think it's on the website.
It's on the website.
Okay, good.
I did read it. It was in the handouts for one of the select board meetings. It's in there somewhere.
Okay, I know I've seen it in you're not the other. Is there a breakdown anywhere of what the largest single expenditures were? I mean, I know the windows, Jeff. Kind of explaining how expensive they were overall, the complete installation, sourcing and all this. But are there any other, gotta have items, must have items that are also really expensive and not really bypassed or modified?
The HVAC system was moving the mechanicals and doing the HVAC, and the windows and the HVAC. From what was explained to us, kind of went together, like if you change the windows without changing the HVAC, we were gonna have really negative air quality in the building. And if you change the HVAC without changing the windows, you were gonna be heating the outside rather than the
I mean, that
inside.
makes sense from like a thermal envelope. You wanna, it's gonna change the heat load, so you'd wanna do those size it accordingly.
I had a question about the HVAC system. Everything I read about heat pumps, that they become very inefficient around 20 degrees and they're useless a bit below that. Need some sort of backup.
Yeah.
I know some of them have built-in electric resistance heaters in them or something. I just wanted to make sure we understood. I asked Jeff when I did the tour if they work at cold temperatures, and he said yes, but
So I can talk to that anecdotally.
They work, but their efficiency keeps going like that.
So, I mean, obviously, like 10 years ago in Vermont, combination of heat pump, Matt can weigh in because he's an engineer that actually does engineering still. But I guess I do more of this stuff. So the efficiency previously, and then we used to get like once in a while, we get like minus 30 degrees. There's still potential that'll happen, but I think we can all reasonably assume that we're not going to get like a week, not above
global warming.
15, yeah,
Has
maybe.
enough for it.
Yeah, and then also the efficiency of those units has increased pretty substantially even in the last decade. So we've built a few houses, well, not me, I mean, not anyone else in the community, in the last 3 or 4 years, and they've been heated only with heat pumps. And all of them have wood stoves or backup, and all the people have managed to go on vacation in the coldest days of the year. Because that's what you would do if you were smart. And none of them had any issues. They've had any, the one we just did in Jericho, they were gone and they had parents staying there. It was their first winter in the house, and it was, one time it was like minus 12 this year. Mike frankly called his mom and asked, "Is it cold? Is it warm in there?" And she said, "Well, I don't know." Not. So I think that,
So they are.
so I think that, yeah, I think they're good enough now that, the worst case scenario is you run into a day where like they can't quite keep up, and instead of it being 70, it might drop to like 68 for the day. But as far as like and then I guess a lot of them don't shut off anymore. I mean, obviously they would, but like at temperatures we'll see in Vermont, they keep running. And they make enough heat to keep things from freezing. They don't do it efficiently.
Yeah.
But they do it. So it's not, there's no longer like, oh no, they're gonna shut off. And we need to.
Do we know if those were air source or ground source?
I think there's air to water and whole thing. I mean, I do think there's some room there. I think we should dive into that. I mean, so I guess what I would say is we're talking about a bunch of this stuff, but I think that the I'm starting to get a sense that our mandate's gonna be exploring a bunch of different options and like trying to figure out where we can really, let's say pare stuff down, because that has the wrong, it has like weird, a bad connotation.
No,
I was really like,
Yeah, the right buzzword, I think.
we should, I say we, like, as a town, we kind of, you know, we shot for fully rehabbing this building with minimal constraints and really redoing it, and that was kind of not, that wasn't approved.
You
And
know,
so we gotta pare it back, and I think that if we can make, I don't think it's reasonable, I think we're gonna cut the cost in half by any means, but if we can make a substantial dent in that cost. So I think, I don't know how we word that as a mandate, but I think that all the stuff we've been talking
One
about.
of our mandates, we will minimize cost wherever, it looks feasible.
I mean, I would almost go as far as to say that, since we've kind of established that we're gonna try to outline that there was a pretty comprehensive decision-making process around sticking with this building, but we're not gonna really revisit. We're gonna kind of, we've come to the conclusion, it sounds like that we're gonna stick that path. But we're gonna just try to do more outreach about that there was a decision-making process there. But I'd almost argue that that's kind of our primary mandate, is that we have to figure out how to pare this down enough to make it a financially feasible project.
That's the advantage of doing a project twice. The second time around, we know what it could cost. That's not okay. We know you gotta find some places. Start right at the beginning. We know we've
Knock $50 off and we'll do it again.
Yeah.
I attended the meeting of the committee, the one they had after the vote. Someone here said that maybe this vote was a necessary step in getting things done. And that maybe we've got the committee's attention.
And it's guidance from the voters, and we don't dare not listen to it, we have to, so.
Anyone wanna work on trying to craft that general sentiment into a mandate that we can vote on next time or discuss?
That's a good point, and maybe we should try to list the mandates that we expect to follow, and then have them discuss those like board and people are trying and go with one of them. That sounds like a list of people.
Trying to put words in that part we just talked about before I forget.
Yeah.
Part of our mandate should specify that we will explore options for renovating the building and try to achieve cost saving measures, but that we are an advisory committee. The select board ultimately needs to make the final decision about how we proceed or how we go forward, but our mandate is to research and recommend options for the select.
With
board.
an eye towards minimum cost.
I think that's an important distinction.
It's a very
It
important
gives us a lot
distinction, I
more
think.
leeway where
Yep.
it's not that we don't want to be making the decision, but it's not our job.
Yeah, right, we're not
It's
the
our
elected
job.
officials
Yeah.
to be doing that.
Just
That's the
providing
select
good
board.
information.
Mhm.
For those jerks, to make this decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That will help.
I'll rewrite all this and everyone else can feel free to rewrite it in ways that make more sense, because then there's a few things in life I'm good at, and being eloquent on paper is not one of them.
I'm ready to start. I can sit with my-
I have so we have thoroughly reviewed the scope and costs, explore options for phased renovating and or cost savings, and provide guidance and recommendations to the select board.
Right.
So I'll elaborate on it.
And that's where Black River could help. What were the most expensive things? I mean, that's easy to have a list. But why? What are the most expensive?
So
Is there any, sort of.
I think our next steps are gonna be, well, one, we can talk about that a little bit, but then once we really dive into doing that, it's gonna be to get Black River here and answer questions. Like, you know, obviously a bunch of questions. Sure, Matt, you have questions, because you've already had a few. I don't know. Go ahead.
I just had one more, sorry to back up a half a step here, but with it getting voted down, is part of our charter to understand and explore ways to minimize the tax impact to the community? Or is that?
Yeah, I think I think, yeah, I think, so, sorry, yeah, that was that was kind of what I envisioned. I guess that should be another part of it. 'Cause there's two ways to minimize the tax impact, right? One would be to reduce the cost, and two would be to find funding sources for whatever cost. So I think, continue to pursue funding sources. So I think there's this weird misconception that they weren't pursued just because a lot of them weren't fruitful. It sounds like they were pursued pretty aggressively,
Yeah.
thoroughly.
That's so close with one of the congressional earmarks.
That's what I heard. Yeah, maybe it works again. Maybe it works. Again.
Yeah,
There's always there's an opportunity with time.
But I think that's our ultimate goal, right? People didn't, I think there were some people that voted on the total cost of the project, but I think more alarming was like, what is this gonna do to my taxes? Like, what do I have to do here? If it was a big project, but we had a surplus somewhere in the project and we had funding, and hey, we're spending $8 million total, but a bunch of it's offset by funding sources, it would have been a very different
Out of your
conversation.
pocket
Well,
from say foreign bank.
One other thing, maybe the police can answer this. Is it common for municipal bonds to be funded on a level principal payment type versus a level payment type that home loans would be? Because this one, as I understand it, pay the principal in level payments, and the first payment is gonna be interest on the whole thing, and it goes off. But that first one is the one that the voter sees is what it's gonna do to the taxes, so.
Right.
Is that,
I mean,
Okay,
the
no,
first
no.
payment's the worst case.
is the
scenario,
worst,
right?
yeah, so is that the way normally these things are funded?
I have never gone through municipal bond
Yeah.
process, so.
That was.
Yeah, I'm not
that
sure.
was the question to find out. I mean, I don't know how much that would.
Well, yeah, the bonds are not like a mortgage, you don't, although. Well, for the town to borrow the money, it's not gonna be mortgage, it has to be, I think it would have to be bond. And frankly, the interest rate on the bond is probably more favorable to us than on a mortgage, particularly these days, if it's in the next few years, it's more like a mortgage rate. So municipalities do have the advantage of when the bond is floated, that it can be tax exempt, for the payers, for the taxpayers. It's not free, but, and I guess there are triple tax-free bonds. I don't know the basis for making those, but there's federal tax and state tax and other tax. I don't know if that's even out situation, but the tax implications for the voters, really, not for the tax implication for repaying the bond, favors us definitely going with a municipal bond. So, however, they have to be structured. Those are the laws. Well, that's what I heard. I mean, a normal mortgage, you're paying a little bit of principal and a whole lot of interest, and it kind of merges somewhere in the cost. I remember, I think it's Josh explaining it, maybe it was Jeff, but the bond payment wasn't what I was accustomed to hearing. It wasn't at all like a mortgage. So
You're fundamentally different in that you're paying interest and you're paying, the interest is obviously calculated ahead of time. They don't calculate
exactly, yeah, because the rate is known.
the total amount you are paying, calculate it, put it on there as a number, and then you just pay it down. Versus every month you're paying on whatever's left. So if you pay extra, you don't save.
I don't know if you can even pay extra because the bond structure, the payout structure is such that it's not negotiable.
So that's a question, bonding, level principal versus level payment and all that. How's that work? I mean, I don't know, we
Yeah,
asked.
that's,
Josh, he and Jeff were talking at one point about a bond versus a note.
Oh,
Talked about a municipal
Oh, yeah.
note and a municipal bond.
I know it'd be more like a loan.
Yeah, a note would be more like a mortgage, and the advantage they were saying at one point was that even though a note, the payments don't depreciate like a bond payment would for taxpayers, you save interest for the town in the long run. So
Oh, that makes sense.
it would have to,
This was the first payment and
Yeah.
the sticker shock to the voters.
right.
It's right up front. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of fortuitous. Interest rates are not going to go up in the future. I think it's really, more like,
Yeah.
that's all in favor. It's lower for everybody, for everything.
You can look at a note. You can look at a note just as a custom contract to repay debt.
Okay.
So,
What's
so,
this?
you know, so I do.
I think private
I-
mortgage, it's like it's a negotiable loan,
Yeah,
basically.
that's exactly right. Yeah. So it's just, it depends on who you get money from and all that, and you just kind of agree on terms and you write a
Mhm.
note about the terms and agree to that. So
Is that a decision, it's really in the hands of a lender, or is it up to us to find the preferable one and go for it? Or is there a state, guidance that we have to follow, or, you know?
I don't know about state guidance. It's usually in who's giving the money. They have the power in the situation. So usually you have those conversations and they come with terms and then you can negotiate that a bit, but it's usually something they put forward.
And is the collateral for the loan, so to speak, is that the taxing authority of the town that backs that up, or what is the?
Yeah, it would kind of depend on the contract. It basically is loans principal amount, interest at a an interest needs to be paid at a predetermined date, and then there's terms of the debt in there.
Mhm.
That-
Mhm.
There's maturation dates, there's terms, there's all this.
Yeah,
It's more of a contract.
all the fine print, all the difference.
Yeah, it's more business. You usually see that in business, like if a startup is fundraising and they're going to get venture capital money, you'll see notes commonly come through in that space.
One big plus, I hope, that we're gonna have this time around, before is the school district, whether the funding is still wild or not, the voters have spoken really loud, and the state has to listen. So the educational funding process or funding mechanism has to be revised. And I can't imagine we're gonna be going ahead of the school district budget. Well, it makes everybody really angry to start with.
Past our budget here though, probably not gonna go down. from that.
Oh, that's true. Also, that kind of that ratchet effect. Yeah, I know, not to, on the school district, but apparently there's an awful lot of subsidizing that goes on in the school districts, and some of our money from our school district is going elsewhere, and it's, I get the sense that a lot of that is going to be revisited. Doesn't mean our chances are down. But hopefully the legislature is a lot more sensitive to the voters than they were before. So maybe that's a plus, or maybe it's not a negative.
One of the,
I'm not optimistic that we won't have big education funding increases just because of
Mhm.
driving forces. It sounds like from this, obviously the COVID funding and all that drying up, et cetera, was a driving force. It sounds like the real driving force, if you had to point at one, would be like healthcare costs and all that.
That's right.
Special education costs. I think the combo of those two are not gonna, even the rate of increase isn't looking like it's gonna.
No,
So I do think that it would be naive of us to think that we're not gonna be, no matter what we put up for bond, we're not gonna be doing it in conjunction with a school budget increase next year.
yeah, no,
That's my
no,
hunch. That's not based on anything except for a hunch.
I believe we actually, the state made some changes because we're right here, was capping it. But they did give us, I believe, some reductions this year, but it's back going away and time it's gonna automatically go up, but. Yeah,
No.
they do that.
Pay the piper. It's either that. or-
Yeah.
one of the questions I have about our charter, and it's an agenda item, which is why I bring it up, and it's also so for transparency, I voted no on this budget. The reason I did that is because this year, the reason I did that is not because I necessarily disagreed with the work. I didn't feel that there's transparency into tax implications across education and the town. And so on our discussion today, we have how are we going to communicate with the town. I wonder if it's part of our charter of transparency and communication out to the town. I think we owe it to the community to be really transparent about the decisions and how we're working and some of our thoughts. And I wonder if that makes its way into our goals here.
Yes, that's like the elephant in the room, I think. The voters were really influenced by that. No matter what we did, we as a town with the town center project, the outside influence of that whole school issue and inflation, and, you know, the world in general isn't gonna go away. It's a reality of the room. It is.
Yeah, and
I
also
made
just-
that- Made that same comment at, Selectboard meeting.
Mhm.
And I know what I did, Josh. had a physical-
Yeah, it's always hard to
And then
take.
looking back to the minutes, it is incredible about it. Community outreach to get input, and then when the vote came up here, every time three people are conversing somewhere, there was somebody trying to tell them what we're going on here. The question that I had, when they handed this to me, when I went on the
Oh, yeah.
tour with Jeff, and first thing I looked at was the parking lot here and said, why is that important? And,
I think that was one of the things that
And
we talked about. Black
and I think
Services.
they were weak on the, why are we doing all of this? As far as that's concerned, and there is something, a paragraph in here about it, but I think that could have been a lot stronger and more detailed required for each part of it, as well as the tax. There is something about what the tax rate would be, but But-
It was, yeah, it was all presented as one large chunk, the whole enchilada, so to speak. And a lot of people choked on it, they couldn't swallow that. That's why, it seems to me, and this is easier to say than to do, but breaking this project into pieces that could be funded separately needs to be explored. Now, we can't take the windows out and not put them back in, and there's certain obvious things that have to go together. We need a heating system upgrade, we need this and that, but the parking lot work, the landscaping, those are things that if we are very careful of not mangling in the first place, maybe we can defer later, or include it with some other work that we're going to get a contract with, you know, the asphalts.
it seems like in the minutes, I read that Lori had said that possibly there's some grants the library could get
Working on
that
that.
would help on, part of it would the access to the library and so forth, and part of that, like, pay for something.
Okay.
Something
They've been a very good partner for the work that comes in. They have, so they have a lot of good things, and they know the libraries live on this. So the phasing, I know you break something in pieces, it also costs money to put them all together in one whole, so it's not necessarily the cheapest way to go, but if this community doesn't want to spend more than a certain amount, whatever number would be, that's the only way I can see to do it. It's essentially, they can stand alone phases.
that- The problem is the interior of the building, we start looking things, it doesn't make sense to put in the high access to the, said next year, we're gonna tear it back with the street acres.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense to do a lot of that. Maybe there's some things that could be done
Mhm.
separately. I mean, a couple of things that I suggested here, seems like there's, like the windows. If you're gonna do the high back system, you really need to do the windows and the roof on the thing. If you're gonna do the basement, tear the thing up. I mean, so
Mhm.
it's hard to pick out the pieces you would do separately.
I know.
Maybe the wire temper.
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking, there needs to be a lot of renovation of the interior space, but these are mostly freestanding walls.
Yeah.
And they're not structural, so maybe a lot of that comes later.
Yeah.
Where we can pay for it out of, general revenues or something, lines.
And the post office wants some of that kind of work done down there too, but, the post office is paid for some of the over the years, so we ought to keep it happy.
It's also, yeah, it's between that and then
Yeah.
it is valuable to have there. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it is a nice town center with
Yeah.
post office, and it's just better than not do it.
Right. I mean, in some cities like South Burlington, spending a whole lot of money trying to do, you're trying to build a town center.
Yeah.
True.
This will be, I mean, it will be something to be proud of. I'm not sure what it will look like, but we're gonna be proud of it. It's a big effort. And we need to do it. I don't think the null option is really an option. It's always the business case of the null option we just don't do this. Well, we can't have the null option develop for very long. Because the building has a lot of needs. and the staff has needs. They need a good work environment. This isn't good that. I also heard that Linda might be retiring next year.
Oh, really?
Well, don't pass that around because it might be just around. In which case, you're gonna hunt me down and hog on me, but, you know, whether that's true or not, it also brings up some other questions like the way to store documents and so forth. What we do with planning and zoning. They didn't need that much space because of all the drawing, sticks and so forth. What do we do with that space? You know, maybe we don't need it. Maybe it's, maybe get another tenant that pays rent, you know. But there are certain things that are kind of incidental to the major plan, but bring up some interesting benefits.
I had someone who talked with Black River that they were certainly receptive to looking for ways to cut costs. Did they?
Oh, yeah.
So
So,
had ideas? I mean.
yeah, so that was, I was gonna say, I don't think they had any specific ideas, but
Yeah,
it's pretty clear to me
but
that
we'd like them to come.
they had a really good understanding.
meeting,
So
let's
they'll be able to come up with stuff
Yeah, let's talk specifics.
and walk us through, and I think I got the impression that they were kind of viewing it more as a collaborative process where we could have a discussion like we're having now, maybe a little more pointed, but have a discussion about, okay, here, the roof, do we want to do that on the post office, and what are the details there, and what are the interconnected pieces of that? And they can clearly walk us through, well, here's the potential to kick something down the road, but if you do this, then you can't do this and this, and you're gonna cost more later, and they can kind of walk us through those things. Or, and the landscaping was one that they kind of identified pretty clearly, and Jeff did, is, you know, we should do some landscaping outside, but it's also very easy to not do that and do it later. We kind of focus on the building itself, and that was a pretty substantial, and it would be a savings. It would still be something we would probably want to do.
Yeah.
But that's a very easy project to bite off in 2, 3, 5 years.
Also,
So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So I guess my recommendation, just having talked to them for a minute, and Amy's probably a better person, was we should come up with some kind of, we should probably write down some of the questions we've had now, like mull them over and just have a meeting. Or we, you know, have a meeting, just invite them in, you guys put the entire time to just talking through that, and even giving them the questions ahead of time so they can really dig in,
Yeah.
come up with drawings and notes and all that stuff on it. And it sounds like they've done all that work informally in their head and kind of a part of the process. And so it's not, I think very few of these questions, if any, will be new things to them.
If we get them on contract, or they can spend a little bit of money for the work, well, just contacting them ahead of time and say, do you have any ideas?
I mean, I think that it's, sounds to me from talking to Josh, I think Lisa, I mean, Lisa and I, as a select board member, I think this is money well spent. And I think Lisa and I are going to both obviously recommend that it is. There's no question in our mind. I don't think that the select board will approve this portion of the contract. So I think giving them a heads up and telling them, you know, obviously they can't do any work until it would be 2 weeks from now when we would approve a PO. But that, hey, we're going to be doing this. We have a bunch of questions. Let's get on the schedule and do that. I think that's going to inform a lot of our work going forward. And I think we should just get that process going, that relationship done.
honestly, I'd like to put a number on it. I mean, if we can't save $1 million from the previous cost, then we're gonna have, it's gonna be no field play. And it's a round number. I don't know where to get the number.
Yeah, it's tough to put that number on, but I think that like order of magnitude, I think that's.
Stick love, yeah, it's thrown down.
I also think that's a reasonable number, though. I don't think we're gonna save that number and have the same project identical. But I think that that's an, just from my like very cursory review, I think that's something we can strive for without substantially undermining the functionality.
Yeah, there's two things that I think we did not embrace the first time around. One is volunteer labor. People can plant trees, people can, do a lot of labor. We've got a garden committee that can do nervous. Or landscaping goes, maybe we don't. Wait a while, I'm looking at it.
You call my wife, she'll probably sign me up for $1 million in volunteer windows.
There you go.
Yeah. The other thing is, the other thing is, if we leave out, if we phase this project, we'll break it into pieces. And one of them or two of them don't get done. it's gotta be something you can live with.
Yeah, I have not an unpopular, but like a hot potato question that a lot of people have asked me. I haven't thought about that, but it's gonna come up. It's like 25% of the total area of this building is gonna be dedicated to police, and we don't have a single police officer, and we don't really have a clear path to having a full force. Sounds like we're on path to have. I think that the update Josh gave us is we're in the process of hiring one officer, but it's been dragging.
Well, it's the background checks are really,
Which I think is indicative of, gonna be indicative of how long it'll take us to hire any number of police officers. I understand that. I guess as a town, we've decided that we want to maintain a, partnership with Heinsberg and have some space here. Potentially have officers in Richmond also, collaboration or whatever. As much as I don't disagree with that, it just seems ridiculous to spend 25% of our total space on police force that we haven't even established that with, not that we don't want to have, but that we can't even make exist.
we should, Adam, that's a really good point. We should have an alternative plan for use of that space. I mean, the space is just.
Radiate.
Yeah.
That was
Or
that's
another
the space
thing.
radiate could go into.
What color do they want the bars?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, is in that, so that was a plan. That was
No,
not planned, but like
we had the exact same question. We kept saying like, what's happened? Do we need to plan for a police department? Do we not need to? And we never sort of got a response from the select board about it. So at least where we had left it was, well, we're not gonna do sort of the Cadillac plan that the old police chief, not Chief
Yeah.
Cambridge, but the old police chief had wanted. We said, no, we're not building a Sally Port. We're not having a folding
Yeah.
cell. We're not doing any of that stuff. It'll be general purpose office space.
it sounds like
It'll
there's
be
options for
purpose
intake and
tenants.
Wilson, like anything high risk would go to
Nothing would-
PSP anyway,
nothing
so
would-
it's not.
There's Heinsberg. They have all that facility they need. built
Yeah.
there. And that's something, we know now that we didn't know this last time. Is I was just going to work with Heinsberg to point that. They're happy with it, at least at the moment, because it puts money in the fund.
Yeah.
Okay. We're happy with it because it provides a police force. And it's expensive, but
I have a
it's not
different way we
expensive.
could go about this, and this isn't, not that I wanna pick at this scab, because that's kind of how I view this topic. But is it worthwhile to, this is a question we're obviously not gonna answer now, but I guess this would be like a Black River / design question. I imagine building space for a police force, even if it wasn't used for that, costs more and has specific requirements that cost more than just putting in art space. Would it be worthwhile to quantify that? Make it clear that the dollar amount we're spending to accommodate a police force that we're not necessarily sure we're gonna have. And so it's not a decision about whether we want to have a police force or not, but just quantify the actual amount of money we're spending. Like kind of the analogy I have, I may not want to really that analogy, like if we're spending all this money to build a nice garage with an electric car charger, but we're not sure we're gonna ever build a Ford electric car, it's like, well, what are you doing?
Well,
This-
apparently,
quantified it.
the previous, I think it's Chief Herrick or one before, was procession chiefs, is the one who laid out the plans in this building for the police station.
Yeah.
I've talked to Chief Cambridge and he says, he'd like to completely revise it. And I think they'd be revising it in a more logical way, first of all, that it's the building now, instead of having to change a bunch of things. And he's also more realistic about what the real needs are. The nice to haves, Chief Cambridge understands there's some nice to haves, and he'd like to have them, but he'll be open, I think, about, I can give this up, I can give that up for a while. I gotta have this, this, and this. They don't need a salary. They can use one in Wilson. They can use
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that
Heinsberg has one too.
the proposal,
You do? Okay.
the proposal that,
Because these are cheap.
proposal that was voted on last, I guess this year, right? It's not a year ago, yeah. Was pretty pared down.
Yeah, it
It
was.
had like specific police space, but I'm assuming there's other,
Mhm.
we worked on the state office building a little bit, and that's probably a different magnitude of like police space. But there was a lot of costs associated with that,
Mhm.
that you wouldn't visually notice from the layout in how they were built. Doors and all kinds of security stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe there's not a huge cost there, but if it was anything like what we were working on there, there's a pretty substantial cost, but then,
And we hadn't gotten to construction plans, like
Sure.
this document is just a
okay, so that's probably,
feasibility plan or a cost, a plan for the
A
cost
layout.
estimator.
there's probably an easy
So,
question. for-
Exactly, it would
for
be a
Black
really
River is
good
like, hey,
one.
what information did you provide in the specs? Like, did they estimate it knowing it's full-on police space, or was it
Oh,
just
yeah.
like,
I think they estimated it, and this would be a good question, but I think I think what we asked them to do was just estimate it as general office space, and the one feature that we had talked about including that would be police specific was sort of like a locker room / bathroom with a shower. If somebody was coming off.
so,
duty.
so there's probably not a.
So
huge
there's
amount.
nothing else,
There's nothing
there was
crazy there.
nothing
But
else
there's-
that
there's-
was police.
There's one other thing the police force is going to want is a front door to come in. Right now, you have to come
Oh, yeah.
to the municipal building and they would like a door that's accessible if the people have an emergency or don't want to be seen coming in, all those things. I mean,
So we get them up on the second floor, so that's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there is the door down inside our,
Yeah.
that locked door, right inside the double doors.
Uh,
That helps and it leads to a stairway, but the chief says, to have someone having a crisis, have to get on an elevator and wait for that really slow.
Yes.
Really not good. So, the chief's input needs to be collected too. I don't know if it was this time around. Was it? Okay.
I think.
Yeah, the chief-
The architects talked to all the building tenants.
Okay.
I figured they would have answered, but was it in the beginning?
Bummer, we didn't find another.
Kind of a couple of ways through, like,
Okay,
and they
okay.
talked to Chief Cambridge.
Okay,
and
okay.
Chief
She's-
Cambridge.
We got Matt.
He's up to speed on what place that is.
They talked to
Mhm.
Ben Herrick
Yeah.
first, and then I'm pretty
Probably-
sure they
he's
talked
probably
to Chief
just
Cambridge.
Wrapping this up, yeah.
Because Chief Herrick was the one that laid out the current
Yeah,
You guys
configuration.
think Matt's got something? What do you-
I-
Yeah.
Chief Cambridge is not happy.
I was just curious if I heard you right, Adam. Maybe I didn't. If we propose this and our goal is to propose methods or ways that we can go about bringing this building up to where we want it to be to the select board. Did I hear you right in saying finding spaces that we can save on the tax burden with kind of other plans in place? And let me just kind of speak in plain English here. Like if we decide not to build a space as if it was a police area right downstairs, do we also want to show if take this across any plans to the building or any plans in town that affect the building? Like if we didn't have a police force and we did this renovation, here's the tax implication. If we do keep a police force and we have to have the renovation in that, here's this tax implication. I'm wondering kind of where our scope lies here and where advisement to the select board is helpful. And this is, I'm just picking on the police topic because it was up, but it might come in other spaces too. There are significant tax implications in other worlds that maybe we can question because they influence the construction on this building. Is that our purview or is that out of bounds? I have no idea.
I think we can't go there. I know what you're saying. If we don't provide for a police station or an adequate police station, I think we're compromising the current efforts that we have going. We're already on that path.
That's right.
So to not provide for it is a real mixed message to Heinsberg and our chief. And I think we are committed to doing that. If some distance through the project, we come up with a magical new policing method, which, things have happened in the past. We'll do our best to incorporate it and maybe, lower the cost. But I think at this point, we have to proceed with having a police station. And, not all the things they want, but,
Some
And-
dedicated space or something.
Dedicated space. Understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I guess what the rest of your question there about like what our purview is, were you saying like what exactly do you mean? Do you mean relative to like what the implications of just limiting the police space are, or like what the broader cascading implications of not having a police space would be?
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering, maybe to the select board members here, I'm not familiar with this was my first time on a committee, for example. But what recommendations are helpful? Is it
Gotcha.
here's 5 paths that you can take. Here minimize taxpayer implications. And these are 2 radical ones that we have. Here are 2 straight down the middle, and here's 1 really conservative one, right? I don't know how to shape that. And what's helpful to the select board is they're looking at a broader space.
As select board member, obviously my perspective on this is gonna be different because probably understand more of what we're talking about than the three members that are not here. But, I think that it would be reasonable to expect a few discussions and decisions along the way. But that ultimately, we would expect maybe one or two, but realistically, the questions would be answered ahead of time for the most part, and we would get like a comprehensive new proposal to decide to put to the taxpayers. I think is kind of what I envision, but I don't, maybe you were part of the process more last time, is that?
Yeah, I think, so I think, Matt, to your question, for example, you could say to the select board, okay, the tax burden might be minimal if we said, we're not going to host in the town center the nonprofit organizations that don't really pay rent to the building, and we're going to say, no, we're gonna have market rate rent paying tenants would lessen the impact of the tax burden. That's one option that the select board could choose, which might then mean, okay, so where does the senior center go? Where does the historical society go? Where does Radiate Art Space go? Like, or if the town feels like those kinds of nonprofit organizations that are community oriented are really important to make sure that we house and sustain. That's, the community can go with that, but that's gonna mean a heavier tax burden on like a renovation project, because we don't have income coming in to offset that. So is that kind of what you're talking about?
That makes total sense to me, yeah.
When we had talked to the select board about that a few months ago before the bond, it seemed like the last select board, and maybe this changes with new membership, that the last select board seemed to favor keeping the current tenants, keep making space in a renovated building for all current tenants. From the police department to the Radiate Art Space to the senior center to the historical society and everybody, and MCTV and everybody else who's in the building. So I think that we may want to ask, is that still your vision? That this
I
is
think
still a space that is
just
open for
Anecdotally,
community
I think that I'm the
nonprofits?
only new member, so
Yeah.
even if I were to completely even if I were to have a super wild card opinion, it's not gonna materially change. But I guess my other question is, were the last time, were those questions kind of presented like as they came up, or maybe we reach an inflection point, decision point?
I think there was a kind of a policy question early on in what to use the space for, and whoever said it, the existing tenants, whether they pay rent or not, are considered to be part of the community.
Yeah.
And they don't have anywhere else to go. And there's a couple that maybe could be sent over to the library, but the large ones, Radiate Art Space is really weird.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
thing about that. Yep.
The kids, the attendants.
So just for like just from like a process standpoint, do we want to ask these questions of the select board? Maybe not right now, but instead of waiting till the end and presenting 3 or 4 huge projects, we should go through our initial, like maybe very quickly, our initial process of working with Black River, figuring out where our opportunities are. And then if there are serious policy questions relative to how the project should be carried out and what the functionality should be from that, we should seek answers to those right away. And so our goal should be to come up with one final proposal. So if we have serious questions about the direction of the project, we should ask those as they come up, obviously, and not work on presenting multiple comprehensive projects.
Yeah, that should be one of Black River's early.
That kind of what you're asking too, right? It's like how that all works.
I think, yeah, for Black River, one of their mandates to use their first envelopes is what are the big cost items? Anything that stands out of this, we send them that after we do initial review. And what recommendations do they have for reducing cost? Let's leave it vague and let the specifics come from them, because I don't think our needs have changed. So it's more of a, what do we want to cut out? Well,
And when your comment about phasing it, they may have some ideas on how that might be.
yeah, I know the first thing they'll say, well, it'll cost more to accomplish.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, but if they put off something for 2 or 3 years, and it reduces the impact on the taxpayers, then, I mean, immediately. To me, that's a It's a public relations victory. Yeah, it doesn't change anything, but it puts the pain, it reduces the pain.
I got a question. I gotta wrap up pretty quick. I think our last thing we really need to do is on this, but we just come up with like, we got any recommendations for agenda items for next time? I think
Oh, this would be
obviously,
the Black River
Vote.
conversation, right?
I think we've kind of answered the contract question, so we want to bring them in.
I would maybe take a pause before we bring them in, and that our next meeting should be us developing a really comprehensive
I
list
agree.
of questions that we want to ask them when we have them sitting before
Yeah, I
us.
think you're right.
We
I
don't
would
wanna-
waste a lot of their
don't wanna
time right
waste their
now, 'cause I'm
time.
not focused,
Yep.
so
Especially since it costs money and we're all free.
we have nothing else to do.
So,
So Black River might be next month at some point.
we've got two things on there so far. So develop questions for a Black River a meeting, and then vote on our mandate. So hopefully we can formalize the mandate and vote on it. And vote on requesting
And
it.
actually bring in Black River until the select board approves our mandate.
Exactly.
So
I think what else have we asked the select board is specifically, well, we tell them our mandate is to minimize cost, look for savings, and present to the select board with a map to accomplish that. And it's, well, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there anything we would ask the select board for before the next meeting? Any guidance?
You know, I know, Adam, you're the only new select board member, but I do feel like it might be important just phrasing the question of our current tenants a mandate. I think that opens a lot of options for us. Just getting
Just re-ask those policy questions of like, we just want to know.
Yeah.
We're not questioning we just want to make sure we know where we're at.
Mhm.
yeah, not re-questioning.
We could
just
affirm our
want-
path we're on.
I often say at work, it's nice to have an anchor to work from. And so if we can find some of those anchors to anchor ourselves to, it'll allow us to operate much more cleanly and have something to hold on to. And I think if the answer comes back and is yes, current tenant stays, that's awesome, right? Like we can operate off. If it's not, then
It's one less thing we have to worry about. We just know. And my hunch is that's a very good thing to ask now, because I don't think that's gonna, I don't think it's gonna be a cost primarily driven by the cost considerations. I think a lot of people have very personal reaction to that and very emotional reactions because they have close ties with those, their kids do things there. The historical society has been around forever. So I don't think that we need to know the cost of that specifically to get that, or to get
I
that. Kind of
agree.
get that direction.
and it
Moral
prevents us
imperative.
from running down a lot of potential.
Mhm.
We have finite amount of space, and if we don't have those tenants here, we still have the space and we still need to heat it, we still need to put all the other stuff into it.
it's real.
Mhm.
The difference might be that maybe we could rent it to somebody who would pay rent, but have we got anybody lined up to do that we could say this really gonna.
That has been kicked around on the select board and it's, the senior center, for example, MMCTV, providing space for them, leave the police department out of it, but they're an obvious part of space user. Radiate is considered to be essential. I think there's, the Lister needs to be here. The ball needs to be here. But there's,
Start charging the ball, right?
I wish. I don't know what that thing weighs, but it's apparently fireproof, bomb-proof, and everything else.
Charge it per pound per month.
Maybe it goes with Linda. Maybe it's Linda's fault. I don't know. But, yeah, I think our allocation of space here is pretty much full. And the people using it are our things.
Again. So I think that's good. That would be the big thing, right? That, and then obviously for them to approve the Black River. Stop saying that. For them to approve the Black River. So start working with them.
And Josh will have to give us a limit. I don't know what's in the town's fund. We'll have to. Okay, you can have this much,
I think, when I talked to him just briefly at the last for me, yeah, separate. The proposal they gave us could be covered at a town center fund. So
Yeah.
short term, we have plenty of funding for kind of interim.
I think there's roughly 200,000 in the town
I
center.
think they're. Yeah, and we, the, proposal we just approved was $7,500, which they kind of saw getting us through the next step. So I guess just as a side note, when we were talking, on mechanics, talking with Jeff and Josh about the kind of time frame, I think that very soon we're gonna have to decide whether we want to make it to a bond vote for next town meeting day. I'm sure as Amy's aware, there's a lot of work to do to get there. Never mind all the communication work that we have to do. So the sooner we can get all the other work done, the actual, decision work done, the sooner we can start communication. But I think that we're gonna have as much consideration as we wanted to put into every little tiny detail. I think we're gonna have to kind of start painting with some broad strokes pretty quickly and hammer out where we can save some costs. So this isn't like an agenda thing. I think it's just like kind of wrap our head around. We're gonna have to learn to run before we walk. We're gonna have to go fast and make some decisions pretty quick, and we're gonna have to be kind of comfortable with that. But I think that I've thought a lot about that and how we do it, and I think that the one thing we have going for us is that the previous committee did so much of the legwork that we have a very strong starting point, and we have a good design team. We have a strong starting point from the last committee, and we have I think with this mandate and just knowing what we know from the last vote, we have a pretty clear goal too. We're not just running.
There's no thing we haven't discussed yet. Is public communication.
Yeah.
We need to do a better job, and we need to start earlier. I don't know how much outreach there was.
There was a lot.
I thought about that too, because
That's gonna,
Just that say,
we need to think about what other ways do we do it, because
Yeah.
we used Front Porch Forum, we had invited people to meetings, everything was posted on the website, we did the dinners at the church, so like, I would be really like, okay, what else should we do? Because I'm out of ideas.
I had the same.
I don't think we did a meal.
No, we did not. do
Here-
that.
That would be the
That's a good point.
sandwich boards.
Yeah.
4th of July parade. No.
Tear off and go back saying, I think we should do this, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
We gotta give people that feeling that they had, participate in the process.
Hoping people know this is coming again too, and so having
Yeah.
it's the first vote,
Some
there's
people
no
don't-
other function other to get people's attention. Because I had the same critique. I was like, oh, there wasn't much communication. I try to stay involved, and then I looked at how much communication there was, and it's like, wow, I really dropped the ball. It's on me that I didn't know. It's not.
Me too.
Every day, so you're the two kids,
Driving around, not staring at anything all day.
I haven't seen Amy jumped out of her chair, but when I did mention the select board, Josh.
I had the same thing. I was like, there could have been more. And Josh said, he just goes,
I
no.
think the other thing we ran into was it's just, there's so much complexity too. Like, how do you get it? How do you take the complexity and get it to a point that people will pay attention to and not like be like, oh my God, I'm tuned
But
out
also-
after.
but
the
also
meeting,"
still
give them
understand
the
the complexity.
information
Yeah,
that
it's not
they're
really
looking
tough.
for.
You know.
So, like, it was a tough balance.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure I've heard about some of this going on, and I assumed there was a committee somewhere that was trying to decide the front steps needed painting and, you know,
I think
whatever.
that
It
was
just-
the other thing too, is a lot of people saw it and like myself included, I'm like, oh yeah, they're deciding kind of what to do. They didn't realize like, oh man, there's gonna be like a $9 million.
Yeah, when they said it was a vote, then I came down and did the tour, and that's.
Yeah, and it turned out it was, wow.
The balance, get out to it.
Yeah, I think mailing would be like, that's like the one untapped. I don't know.
We've got to look, I mean, we got to be sensitive to people's, sensitivity to the cost.
Oh, yeah.
There are people who, yeah, this is coming out of their pockets.
Well,
And for 20 years or whatever the money is. So
I need to wrap up and.
Yeah.
Does everyone want
Oh my God,
to, I make a motion, we adjourn. Second,
Second,
everyone in favor?
aye.
No one opposed? Sorry, Lisa, I took your job, sorry.
No,
It's a whole night.
I don't have a gavel, don't worry about it.
Have a good night, everybody. Nice to
Gotta
meet you.
go.
See you, Tom.
Matt.
Thank Matt, thank you very much.
Good night. Thank you. See you soon.